In 2018, the Trump administration unleashed a policy of family separation whereby children and infants were wrenched from their parents or guardians at the U.S.-Mexico border, deliberately absent any system for reconnection. The Department of Homeland Security sent these children to distant facilities throughout the United States, as far away from their parents and guardians as possible. Facilities without beds, without proper sanitation, or adequate food and water. In many instances, there were no adult caretakers such that children were taking care of children. Public Counsel, with the law firm Sidley Austin, filed a landmark civil rights lawsuit to have these practices declared unconstitutional, to bring about family reunification, and for the first time anywhere, to secure access to mental health and trauma services. A great federal judge, Judge John Kronstadt, enjoined these atrocities. As a result, we have located and reunited over 1,300 families who had been separated. Over 40% of which have obtained mental health services in their native languages, leading to referrals to over 330 providers across 41 states. This work continues. While normalcy, quite honestly, will never be fully restored, children who believe that their parents had abandoned them, had taken them to this country to abandon them, who had stopped eating, who feared authority figures and panicked upon hearing loud noises, are recovering in the loving arms of their mothers with the assistance of experienced professionals. In 2016, Public Counsel, again with the Sidley law firm, filed a civil rights action to establish a constitutional right to access to literacy, a right to read on behalf of the students of Detroit. These children, these students, attended schools that were schools in name only, lacking basics like qualified teachers, textbooks, core curricula. They were never assigned homework. Instead of classes, they were shown films like Kung Fu Panda. They sat in grossly overcrowded facilities overrun with rats and other vermin, black mold, with classroom temperatures regularly exceeding 100 degrees or dropping below freezing, with toxic drinking water and unusable bathrooms. In one instance, the math teacher for 7th and 8th graders was an 8th grader. Not surprisingly, Detroit had the lowest literacy rate of any school district in this country. Over 96% of students were not proficient in reading. Over 98% were not proficient in math. In many grades, the proficiency rate in all subjects was 0. The state of Michigan argued to a federal judge that the reason for these scores, and I'm quoting now, was, quote, the intellectual limitations of the children. This was the work of Betsy DeVos and over a decade of state policies that sought to subordinate and disenfranchise communities of color by disinvesting in and dismantling public education. That was their target, the destruction of public education. Last year, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals held in our case for the first time in this nation's history that a constitutional right of access to literacy exists and that the conditions I described to you were unconstitutional. That ruling has hardly solved everything, but it led to a settlement providing millions and millions of dollars to bring about literacy. It committed Governor Whitmer to seek legislation to address all the conditions, and perhaps most importantly, it affirmed the grassroots struggle for educational justice waged for decades by brave students, their families, and community supporters who courageously took on the state and beat their tail. I don't have the words to properly describe to you the contributions by the Sidley firm, other than to tell you that these victories would not have occurred without the partnership of dozens and dozens of brilliant, tireless, and gutty lawyers from their offices all across the United States. Dan Klivner here and Carter Phillips in Washington, D.C. never asked what was needed personnel-wise, never was asked what was needed in terms of financial resources. Nobody counted hours. They always said yes. Sidley opened their hearts. I sometimes hear it said that pro bono work is about giving back. Truthfully, I want to tell you, I've never been comfortable with that expression. I don't think that any of the extraordinary individuals at Sidley who were involved in these battles felt that they were giving back anything. What makes Dan Klivner and his colleagues friends, not just co-counsel, but dear friends, is that they find meaning and fulfillment in being afforded the opportunity to do their part in being privileged to enter the narratives of those whose lives are about the battle to eradicate racism, cruelty, and hatred in our midst. Is there any better way to lead a life? It is genuinely my pleasure to award the Public Counsel Law Firm of the Year Award, the Pro Bono Award, to my friend Dan Klivner for the passion, commitment, and intelligence of Sidley Austin.